Hello all, welcome to the web application pen testing course at Pentester Academy. Now in this video, we are going to look at CSRF multi-step operation handling. Now what do I mean by that? Now on most critical websites, important operations might span multiple steps. So as an example, when you're transferring funds from one account to the other and you click submit, the bank might show you a confirmation screen in between, which you have to accept before the real transaction goes through. Now for a pen tester, this can be a real pain, because what this means is he can't just go ahead, set up his little image source equals or iframe or script as we saw in the last video and just get the operation done. He would have to simulate the same multi-step operation, which is probably going to be done by an real user on the system. Now keep in mind that the one we are going to discuss in this case is where no CSRF protection is enabled, simply because if, let's say, you have CSRF tokens, the attacker might not be very easily able to figure out how to create the multi-step operation, right? Now we will take up multi-step operations with CSRF protection enabled, like tokens and a host of other things in later videos, right? Expect just the CSRF theory videos to be at least 7 to 10. So we'll take it up a little later. I don't want to complicate things early on. Okay, so let's actually do the demo before we talk about complicated multi-step operations with tokens. So in this case, there are no tokens, and I'm going to be using the WebGoat application I used in the last demo. And the one we are going to use this time is the CSRF prompt bypass. Now this is similar to the last demo. Let's actually go ahead and understand this a little better. So let me first figure out the URL. For some odd reason, the WebGoat guys would always like to make that a challenge as well. So I've clicked on this, right? The other option, of course, is look at the source, but I'm not in the mood to do that. So here is the actual operation. So let me copy this one out. And let me actually paste this in here, right? And I'm going to be adding the ampersand transfer funds as well, just as requested in the challenge. And I'm going to click and enter. And if you notice, I'm taken to a confirmation page, right? Let me actually note down all of these links because this is going to be handy. So this is the first link I need to hit: transfer funds equals 4,000. And this leads to the confirmation page, right? And if I look at the confirmation page source, I have a little form in here. Let me actually copy this form out so that I can see the parameters. Here it is. So here is basically the form of interest to us, right? And if you notice in here, the method seems to be a post. So we can actually verify many of those things in here just by clicking on network and then clicking confirm, right? So if you notice, basically we are sending out a post request, and it basically now tells us the fund transfer is complete. So if I actually click on this, hit and send, right? So edit and send. We can actually see a lot of interesting things happening in here. Just give me a second. Should go back in here, hit a confirm, hit this. Look at the parameters of the post request, and if you notice, the URL with screen 32 and menu 900 pretty much is the same. The only difference right now is the fact that this is now a post request, right? So what we have to do is make a post request. So let's remove this. Now we don't need this anymore. So this is going to be step 1 of the operation, which is hitting this URL, and this is going to be step 2 of the operation, right? The confirmation page. And in the confirmation page, what we would now need to go ahead and send is basically going to be forum data transfer funds confirm. So I'm going to do a transfer funds, and the value for this needs to be confirm. Fantastic. Okay, so now let's go ahead and set this up, right? The technique I'm going to use is the XML HTTP request. So let's jump right in. So I'm going to use my script tag, and the first thing I'm going to do is var, let's call this request1 equals new XML HTTP request, and then I'm going to do a request1 dot open. First is basically the request for this URL, and this seems to be an ordinary get operation, right? Nothing great about it. And let's make this asynchronous. Then we can do a request1 dot send. Now basically what I would want is that once this request goes through and comes back, then I can make the post request to this URL. So let me introduce on ready state change handler. Now keep in mind that if you don't recall what this is or have no clue, look at the JavaScript for pen testers course, right? On Pen Tester Academy, of course. On ready state change. We're going to mention the function responsible for taking care of this. Now inside this, of course, we'd like to make sure that the response has arrived and everything is okay. So I'm going to do the if request1 dot ready state equals 4, data has arrived with us, and request1 dot status equals the whole 200 okay thing. That's when we are going to now go ahead and make the second XML HTTP request, right? And this one would have to be a post request. So I'm going to do a request2 equals new XML HTTP request, and then request2 dot open. In this case, keep in mind this is a post request. The URL, let's make this asynchronous as well, and this URL is actually going to be this one in here. Now it's a post request, and if you recall, there are parameters we need to send, right? The parameter which is basically the form data now is going to be transfer funds, which basically equals confirm. So in the case of post, if you recall, we need to set the appropriate headers in this. XML HTTP request. So I'm going to do a request do.set request header, and the header of course is going to be content type, and then basically we mention the content type. Now content type is going to be application / xwww form URL encoded. Now we can actually send the request out, and the way we would do that is ensure that the form data is inside the send call. So I'm going to do basically a transfer funds equals confirm. Okay, looks about okay. Let me just quickly look at this, ensure there are no typos. Request 1 new XML HTTP request, request 1.on ready state change, state. Seems about okay to me. I'm just going to copy this one out. Go back in here. Let's go back to the original application. I'm sure the task would show as done. So I need to probably restart the lesson again, just to ensure the task isn't done. Okay, prompt bypass, it seems okay. Now let me actually do the XML HTTP request demo bypass. Let's just do a bypass demo. We paste the JavaScript in here. Clearly see the JavaScript which I pasted, which we've just created right now. And let me hit submit in here. This appears in the list of messages. Now let's actually see what really happens by going ahead and monitoring the network as we've done before. Now let me click on this message to open it up. And there you go. The first click, of course, is the message opening up. The second click is basically the get request which went through. If you notice, we get a 200 OK. And if we see the response preview, you would actually notice the confirmation screen appears. And the last one, if you notice, is a post method with the params transfer funds equals confirm being sent. And this results in the transfer of funds being completed. Fantastic. And if we refresh this, actually find we are done. Awesome. Now, one of the other things I'd like to discuss is the official solutions from WebGoat's side, right? So if I click on their solutions, let's look at what they've done. So they've offered two solutions. One is using the image tag and the other is iframe. Now, I think I'm on the wrong lesson. Hold on. Here we go. Now what they've actually done in this case with the iframe is basically the source of the first iframe. So let me actually copy this out and explain what they've done. And you'll actually see something funny in there, which so let me copy this out. Let me copy this entire code out really. Okay. So this is the solution where they've defined two iframes. The first iframe loads up and then loads the content of the second iframe, right? So the first one is called myFrame, and what it does is it loads up the first operation, which is transfer funds equals 400, which itself is kind of wrong, it's 4000. And then after that, what it does is on load, which is as soon as the iframe loads, we call document.getElement by id frame2 and set the source to the next operation, which basically is the funds transfer equals confirm. And this basically gets loaded in here. Now, the first problem which I actually noticed is with this, you can do a get and a get. We aren't doing a post in here at all. The case is that seems like the script to which we are posting this is okay with getting a get instead of a post if the same parameters are passed in. So what I can actually do is if I copy this out and I go back in here, I do iframe get. The reason I'm mentioning that very specifically is you're going to see that. So I'm going to go ahead, click a submit. This appears here. Let me look at the network monitor. Let's go down in here. Let me click on the iframe get demo. Now, if you notice, the first one is of course getting it. And I think one of the other mistakes these guys have done is in the solution, they have a different challenge actually referenced. Let me just refresh the page real quick. Hold on. Okay. So the mistake really is the screen isn't 5. The screen is 32 and the menu is 900, right? So the screen is 32. Menu 900 seems to be okay in both places. Let me copy this out. I apologize. And I'm going to do an iframe get demo. Click submit. See that in there. It's the last one in here. Let's set up the network monitor. Click on the message. And there we go. First one is of course fetching the message. The second one is the transfer message but with a get. And the third one is the transfer funds with a confirm, again a get method. Now interestingly, looks like because the script seems to accept both get and posts, which might not always be the case. Keep in mind, right? A developer could have coded in such a way that the form post only accepts a post and is not going to accept it in the form of a get. Then this technique would currently fail. I'm not sure why they have this little mistake in here of using a get when the original lesson actually had a get post. Anyway, so let me click and restart this lesson again. But this is a good technique nonetheless. As I said, we touched upon iframe. The key thing here is loading the second iframe using the onload event handler, right? This is something we've discussed a lot when we did XSS attacks, right? Of how onload can be abused. Now, the second one is basically using the image tag. Again, they seem to have done a get rather than a get post, because you really can't do a get post with the image tag one. So let me actually copy this out, paste it in here. So I'm going to call this the image technique for successive gets. Right? Again, the URLs are completely off mark. 32, menu is 900, transfer funds is 4,000. Looks like maybe the values don't make a difference to these demo scripts, but I just want to be correct. There you go. So what they do here is image source equals, and this is the first operation, right? And of course, this operation, which is when the browser fetches this image, it won't find any image data and would raise an error. When that happens, the onError handler is going to be called. And all that does is really what happened in the case of the iframe, which is now it says document.getElement by ID image2 and then loads.source equals blah blah blah, which includes now the transfer funds equals confirm, right? And that gets loaded up in here. Now, as you can see, if it was just gets, you could actually have image2 have an onError as well, which could load image3 and then image4 and then image5. And if it was just gets where you already know the URL, there is no form of token or anything in there, then you could call as many multi-step operations successively as possible using the image technique and the iframe technique, right? The best part of the image and iframe is it can be embedded happily on an attacker controlled website. Now, if you wanted to do a get and a post, that can also be done through an attacker's website, but I would be leaving that in one of the challenges which we are going to create with the CSRF videos, which you should be able to find under web application challenges section shortly after the release of this video. Anyway, let's actually run this example as well for the sake of completion. And I'm going to say the image, again, the get technique, right? Because this isn't doing a get post. Okay, if all the parameters were correct, let me just kind of verify that once again. 32 and 900. There's no other typos or anything anywhere else. Then I could do quick submit. The image stuff appears in there. Let's click network. Just click on this, right? And there you go. You actually see the image get. Okay, looks like the URL was off mark, right? This seemed to be an attack which was missing. My bad. So I actually had a new parameter in here. How stupid of me. I didn't even see the damn URLs. So I apologize for not seeing that and swearing about it. I think the web code guys really need someone to proofread the solutions. I think it's a fantastic application, but it needs to be proofread very, very well. Okay. I think this should be it. So I'm going to go back in here and say image get final, hopefully. And then hit submit. This image shows up in here. Clear the bottom in here. I'm going to click this, and there you go. The first one is fetching of the message. The second one is the transfer funds equals 4,000. Now the thing is that if you click on preview, you won't see anything, simply because we are doing this as part of the image tag, and hence the response data has no meaning at this point, because from the browser's perspective basically is corrupt data. Unlike an iframe where the response expected was really HTML. Now here is the other operation, transfer funds equals confirm. Again, a get, keep that in mind, right? We can't do a post with this technique. And now if you go ahead and click on this, go down there, you still don't see a prompt-based bypass. Interesting. Let me just quickly check this. There we go. So here is the first one, transfer funds equals 4,000. Here's this, I seem to have mentioned both of these parameters. Too many mistakes on this one, guys, I apologize. Okay. Final image get. Submit, clear this up. There we go. First one, transfer funds is 4,000. Second one, transfer funds is confirmed. Now let's go back in here. Let's refresh this page. Scroll down and there you go. We've gone ahead and successfully completed this challenge, right? So the key takeaway is that if you want to do a get, the iframe, the base iframe technique and the image technique works perfectly. But if you want to do a get post, the technique shown here might not be the right way to go ahead. If you find an HTML injection, you can use XML HTTP requests and do the get post. And if you want to use the attacker's website, you could do interesting things and techniques there. But as I said, I have created some challenges which you can look at in the web app challenges section to learn about how you can do it. Well, that's all for this video. Thank you and have a great day ahead.